Okay, so everybody, welcome to the third mentoring session for Santa Nana's Holiday University. This is a 360-degree mentoring for the season ahead. I'm Deanna Golden. And
I'm Judy Broderick.
There's Judy. And we want to welcome you to the Santa Nana's family, where we offer a different and unexpected point of view for holiday education, based on Santa Nana's passion for raising the visibility and the opportunities for holiday education and opportunities for women to have a bit more visibility. Here we learn, we share, we encourage, we connect with each other so that we all bring out our fabulousness. That was one of Lucky's favorite words. Her vision was to bring all holiday performers together for all holidays, not just Christmas. She portrayed herself as Santa's sister, and she lived her dream for more than 20 years. Those of you who knew her or knew of her know that she passed away in 2016 and entrusted Judy and me to carry her vision forward for holiday education for everyone from a lady's point of view. Judy's going to cover a little housekeeping before we start.
Okay, first, just so you know, we are recording this session. And if you cannot see everyone, if you are not able to, click on the participants down at the bottom there, and then you will be able to see everyone who's in the cafe right now. Please mute yourself when you're not speaking and use the chat box right down there. It'll say chat. We have 3 chats going on. Okay. And use your raise the hand option that's in there in order to, if you want to say something, and I will be monitoring, and I hope I will notice you and then quickly turn on your grid view if you want to see everyone, and try and keep it one person at a time as we have closed captioning enabled, and speak clearly and slowly so the transcript can interpret us correctly. We're going to have our 2 speakers. Our third speaker, Amanda, cannot make it tonight. She had some things that came up that she is unable to be here, and she sends her apologies. And we're going to let our first 2 speakers talk, and then we will have our question and answers afterwards, because sometimes we get so carried away that the other person gets cut short. So we'll let the 2 people speak, and then we will have all our questions and answers for as long as you guys need to. With only a few months before the season begins, much has changed in how we prepare for the season. And we would like to thank Trish Schuler and Carol Baker for sitting in tonight's panel. As I said before, Amanda sends her regrets. She had some personal challenges that have come up, and she needs to focus on those, and that has kept her from attending. This is our 3rd session of the year, and we're thrilled to continue these sessions and to share information across the SNHU family. Our first guest is Trish Schuler, Joyous Mrs. Claus, and Trish will discuss her experience in rebuilding her business after moving into a whole new venue, a whole new town. So go ahead, Trish. We're just going to jump right in there, Trish. Unmute yourself. Can people hear me?
Looks like Trish is frozen.
Yes, she is. Okay, let me text her and tell her you're frozen.
I can text her, and maybe if you want, let's start with Carol.
Okay, she just sent me a text, and she says I'm having streaming problems.
Okay.
So we will start with Carol Baker.
So if she's frozen, that makes her Elsa, not Mrs. Claus.
I don't know if you guys ever saw my post that I made. Bill has been painting our fences and staining them with a 100% coverage Thompson water seal stain. And so I have French braided his beard really close to his face till it all comes down to here. Then he has a long kind of Viking braid right here, and then I curl it back up so he can put it under a mask so he doesn't turn cedar colored. And the little neighbor girl, I said, doesn't Santa look silly? And she goes, he looks just like Elsa. Trust me. He does not look like Elsa. Anyhow, it's so funny. Okay, Trish.
Hi.
Okay. Do you want us to let Carol go first until you get your streaming working?
Well, I got to my phone,
Oh, okay.
so
All right.
I've switched over. So
Okay. Yeah, she was trying a new app on her mini iPad.
yeah, even with the 5G, this 3G is better.
Okay.
At least
So-
you won't be leaving me.
Okay. Do you want to start first then?
Sure. Well, you can start with Carol because I'm not sure where my focus is right now. So
Okay, we'll start with Carol. Carol,
Okay.
you're on.
Well, my preparation this year may be a little bit different. And it was funny, in the mail today, it showed up something exactly what I had been talking to Judy about. I received a card from a friend of ours who's a realtor. And on it, it says, sometimes the most productive thing you can do is relax. And other years, I've been much more aggressive in going out and promoting Mrs. Claus. But the last 2 years, life seems to have gotten away. And I know many of you, especially with COVID and things that are happening in your families as far as grandchildren and spouses, things have gotten a little bit more crazy than maybe what was before. And Steve Gillum said something interesting at the Brothers Claus. He said, sometimes you have to just say no. You have to take a moment and say, what is good for me and my life at this moment? So while we're preparing for this coming season, and now even more is happening with the Delta variant, we may have to take a moment in order to be productive, just to relax, to just say, okay, what should I be doing? What should I be letting go? What can I do instead of the things that maybe I've done in the past? So right now we have a lot going on in our family. The last 2 years have been, or last year and a half, have been a little bit crazy. Just one moment, I'm going to shut my daughter off. And so I've been looking at things and I'm thinking, what else can I do? So right now I'm writing a story for how Santa and Mrs. Claus and the elves met the reindeer. I wrote a story a little while ago about why Santa looks different. I'm looking at my Mrs. Claus wardrobe and I'm saying, what do I need to keep? What should I get rid of? But I'm not perhaps being as aggressive in reaching out to people and say, I need to schedule this and this and this and fill up my whole season with lots of dates. This year, I'm going to be a little bit more conservative. And I know now with everything that's going on, we don't know if we're going to have masks and everything again this winter. So I love the idea of just to be productive, relax. Don't maybe stress about things so much. Maybe you'll feel more comfortable not being aggressive. I know I see online all the things people have planned and I'm thinking, oh, this is wonderful. And they're doing this and this and this. But then I go, is that right for me? And so take a moment and look at what's right for you this season, even though, oh, there's so many wonderful ideas out there that are just so tempting. But don't feel guilty if for your season this year or in another year upcoming, whatever's happening in your family, that you find you need to take a moment and maybe draw back a little. But whatever you decide, do what's best for you. Because I know we tend to get wrapped up in so much that's going on. And I know I'm like that. I see all the wonderful ideas. I'm thinking, oh, I should do this and I should do this. And I need to contact this and this and this and this. And then I think, but can I really realistically do that for me? Is that what's right at this moment for me? So I'm not saying don't do things, but I'm saying don't feel badly if you feel that right now this isn't a good time for you to do something. Pick and choose what you want to do, pick and choose what you're comfortable doing, and you'll have more joy, I think, in your season if you can let go of any stress that is building up. And that's my advice for this season.
Carol, I just wanted to add to that. I know we're going to hold questions to the end, but I think the words that you're sharing are really, really important, because after last year, me, like so many others, are going to jump at the chance to get back and catch up, and we might want to overdo and do everything that we can and not have any downtime to kind of re-energize ourselves. But we just want to, so many families are going to be calling looking for clause partners. And if they reach out to you because someone else is not ready to come back in, or there's so many who missed last year, I think we're going to be tempted to want to raise our hands for everything. And for those of us who are hand raisers and want to say yes, that's going to be tough. And so when we get to the Q&A, let's hear more about how everyone's going to be managing if that's their situation.
I know I tend to overschedule myself at times. And that's why this just struck me so that sometimes to really be productive, you have to relax. You have to maybe not be so over the top all the time, that sometimes you just need to bring it down a little bit so that you're truly productive and you can truly be comfortable and not stressed and not overtired, not wearing yourself down, that you can be the most effective clause that you want to be.
Thank you. Judy's frozen. So now she's Anna or Elsa or Kristoff or Sven or whoever. There's a whole galaxy of frozen characters. Favorite movie. So let's shift to Trish and hear Trish talk a little bit about her situation this past year, that some of us will find ourselves in a new city, a new life, new people. And so Trish is going to share a little bit about how she's navigated through that this past year. And then
Yes, well, I was a former resident of Santa Claus, Indiana, and in April of 2020 relocated to Barkersville, Indiana, which is south of Indianapolis. Small town again, but very, very busy with new development. So there's a lot of chances to get out there and do home events, which is what I prefer to do with my husband of 47 years. And we've been doing this since 2012, but I find myself this year faced with, how much do I really want to do? Do I want to overdo it? Do I want to pause and take a year and just reminisce on what was and start out with a whole new event planning? This past week, I reached out to a former client up here, Center Grove School District. We used to do craft fair, and they were more than pleased to book us again this year, depending on how the mask mandates go and if they're going to close the school down for COVID. So that's always in the back of your mind. So as we press pause again, we're going to take step one at a time, just slowly moving along. But I've taken this time to look back, like Carol says, and simply go through things and say, okay, do I really need this? What can I do without? And what do I need to redo? And this is the blouse that I wore the first time as Mrs. Claus. And I was proud to be able to put it on, and it still has room in it. And the thing is that you can never be too organized. As it happened in 2018, my husband got sick on December 2nd. And I, sitting in ICU, had to contact 60 clients and tell them that there wasn't going to be a Santa Mrs. Claus at their house. And I was doing everything I could to find a replacement. But it's hard to do that when your husband's hooked up to all these machines and stuff, and you don't want to have him at least hear you're struggling, getting by with the schedule. But with Santa Nana in August of 2018, kind of pushed me forward to get more organized. And you're never going to know it all. You got to be able to expect the unexpected. But the schedule had been such a mess on a big spreadsheet. I think there was some 40 columns, and that wasn't something that was portable and easy to take around. So I eventually took the schedule and put it on my calendar on my phone. And in the notes, I had the contact information, their email and everything. I had just taken time, do a couple every day, but when you're getting into 100 contacts, it's going to take a while. And then it happened on December 2nd. My husband went into the hospital for a whole month. You find strength that you never thought you had, but on December 2nd, you're not going to find a Santa to fill his shoes, especially within a 2-hour radius, to come and help you because they're all booked. So I reached out to a lot of retired Santas. I found a couple of Santas that were willing to do it. They weren't, the families weren't really happy with me, but they took what they could get and were happy to see us back in 2019. Now the Christmas in 2019 was unlike any other. I don't know what it was, but everything was as smooth as it could possibly be. There was no truck keys locked in, and the children were all very happy about Santa Mrs. Claus being there. We didn't have any big accidents, no big interruptions in our schedule, and it was perfect. But so this year I'm back to square one, and I've finally booked my first event. And going through the closet still, I'm sitting in my closet room. I've got sewing projects going, but to me, I'm looking at it saying, I don't even know if I really want to finish it, or am I really going to be that busy this year? But you always have to be ready. So there's all kinds of little projects I want to do. And again, I've been writing my books, and I finally printed all my stories out. I'm backing everything up on thumb drives and just get myself organized, because you never know what's going to happen in life. And this past year has really showed us that. So I can throw it out there and see who has any questions and who wants to speak next. Anybody?
Thank you,
Got a question?
Trish. The two most important words I wrote down from what you said was be ready. For any of us who were Girl Scouts or with Boy Scouts with the Santas, be ready, especially for the unexpected. Absolutely. Some of you, when you registered, you did post some questions on we're going to get to that, but why don't we pause now, and with what Carol talked about as far as having the, it's about priorities and being ready and expecting the unexpected. Do you have questions for Carol or Trish at this point? It's got a lot more that we're going to talk about.
I have a question for Trish. Part of the reason things are a little crazy this year, we thought we'd be moving this year. Now it looks like it will be next year because our builder pulled out and we are in the process of looking for a new builder. So when we do make the move, it's only going to be at about an hour away, but it's going to be in a slightly different location. When you moved, what were some of the things you considered in reaching out to people in the new area?
Well, it was in COVID times. So there really wasn't anything we wanted to do because my husband was still working full-time in Jasper. He retired this year, which is going to allow us more time with the children. But here in the neighborhood, we considered getting a golf cart, driving around to the neighborhoods and waving at the children from afar and maybe leaving a little treat at the driveways. But as far as marketing ourselves, we didn't really want to reach out and get involved with that because he is still immune compromised from his attack in 2018 and hip surgery and knee surgery last year. So He's back out and ready to do the craft fair if we can do it. And we've got several other people that we can work with, but I really, really love doing home events. And since we're 3 hours away from Santa Claus now, the blessing was that when we knew we were going to list our house, I sent a really nice letter, personal letter to each of our events and our people, and explained to them that we were leaving. So when COVID hit, I didn't have to come back and say, oh, we're canceling this year. I gave them a whole year to find somebody. That was very important, Carol. Make sure everybody knows that you're moving to another area. The only event we had in this area was the one we've done 6 years. They're more than happy to have this back. So as far as reaching out, we've got a couple people we want to work with in the neighborhood. And there's all kinds of little things you can do with the family. We've got a very growing, big development here and many new houses and many new faces. And most of them all know us already as Santa and Mrs. Claus. So I thought about holding an open house, inviting people over so they could get to know us. And a lot of people say, well, you're just perfect for our grandkids, you know, so that's going to help. So I wish you the best of luck, Carol, because it's a big job to move.
Well, and the thing is, I've been downsizing and packing, and now we're still here, and I've got piles of stuff packed all through my house.
And
Great question.
And the movers go, and you have a sleigh yet to move? I go, yes. I've never seen anything like it.
Other questions for Carol or Trish? Jocelyn is on.
Yeah,
Are you? Yes.
I was going to say, Carol, I think it's kind of a part of your whole getting ready, be prepared for any eventuality. Now, now, I guess, yes, that you won't be moving before Christmas, but just kind of pondering that thought of, okay, you got there, did you have all of your Claus stuff packed already? And how much of it are you bringing back out, for that? Or did you, are you still just going to kind of pick and choose? I know you said you were clearing some stuff out, but I wondered if you had any of that stuff packed and ready to go yet.
Well, fortunately, most of my Claus stuff I keep packed in bins, so I can still get into those bins. They're just in the front bedroom. It's just, we're living in a house that seems like it's 20% packed.
Yeah.
So I think it's worth putting the question to the rest of the group. As far as being prepared, be ready for anything, be prepared for the unexpected. What unexpected events have you faced during the season that you didn't see coming, and how did you handle it?
You want me to answer that?
Eileen raised her hand. Let's go to Eileen and then we'll move on. Yeah.
We had the unfortunate situation last year. We didn't contact anyone. Everybody contacted us. So our regular clients that we usually do, if they called us, we figured out what they wanted and if we were able to help them. Well, we had 2 women contact my husband who had the same name and wanted something on the same date. And then all of a sudden he started getting text messages and realized the day before that they were coming from different phone numbers. And it was 2 different people. So we spent Friday night calling around, trying to find a Santa at home to see if we could find one to take care of at least one of them, because there was no way we could get to the 2. And it turned out, luckily, using our Arizona Santas and our connections, one of the Santas we tried to get to happened to meet with this one family at a restaurant. and they were able to take care of it. But at 11 o'clock at night, after we were calling everyone, we tried calling her, and she called us back and said, "Oh, I found a Santa," and it was the first one we called. So one of the things is that you really do need to work with your local, getting to know your local Santas. And I think this year that's going to be our biggest problem, because our chapter has only met twice, and now we're not meeting again this month. So, you know, you lose connections when you're not able to get together. So that's one of the things I would say that happened to us, but we're lucky to have a chapter to work, you know, that worked with us.
That's
We
great.
don't see that this year.
I know that Eileen's microphone was not the best there, but if you were able to follow the transcript at the bottom, we could pick it out, and we'll clean that up as well. But I think that's really good advice too, Eileen. It's a tough situation, but the idea of chapters, do you all belong to a local clause chapter where you can network with other people and, you know, kind of get substitutes? Carla's shaking her head. Ellen, and I'm sorry, and you wanted to go ahead, Ellen.
Okay. I do, and I am not active. And the reason I am not active is because they are very Santa oriented. If you are a Mrs. Claus not married to a Santa, they want really nothing to do with you. They have a really hard time staying in the Santa role and out of politics and judging. And I have just made a very conscious decision that I am going to distance myself from that group. And I don't attend their dinners. I have done so in the past, and they have really been very awkward and uncomfortable. And quite frankly, they've turned me off in a lot of respects to Santa, because these people are just not nice. And it's kind of like I have this vision of ministers that there's kind of, I know they're just people, but they're supposed to be just a little bit nicer. Same thing with Santa, and they're just not. So that's just my experience with our local group. I much prefer women. Thank you all very much. And because I'm a solo Santa, I do have one Santa that I work with, and he calls me and says, "I've got this job. Are you in?" And I said, yes. But as you know, in the past, I've worked for Busch Gardens, and I've made the decision not to work for Busch Gardens anymore, but I am going to do Enchant Christmas if you're here in town. And if you're not familiar with that, I encourage you to Google Enchant Christmas. It's around the country. So most of my work as Mrs. is as an event Mrs. I do a couple of churches and things like that I do for free, and I've done them for 10 years. But in terms of the local Santas, they were more trouble than they were worth for me as a solo Santa. Sorry, I'm over the egos. You know, I just am.
I'm so sorry to hear that, Ellen. And
Well, and you know a couple of them.
I know of whom you speak.
Yes, you do.
And so
and those are not the only ones like that in the group.
And your area is not the only place that experiences that kind of frustration as well. It is rampant, and that's one of the things, you know, just kind of like a little segue there. It's one of the things that Santa Nana identified, and why we're doing what we're doing now, because there were no opportunities for women to gather and to invite the men to come. You know, Lance and Santa and all of you get where we're coming from, is because it was those workshops where, let's talk about beard whitening, and there was nothing. Oh, we've got two more coming in. There was nothing for the ladies, from the ladies' point of view. And so the evolution and the growth has been phenomenal, and we so greatly respect Santas like Lance, who is incredibly welcoming, and gets the complete experience, you know, of what a female performer can do. Absolutely. Someone else.
I would like to address something that Janet has been putting on here. Now, Janet, please unmute yourself and speak up. Janet has an agent, so she said she doesn't have to worry about some of this. I will quickly share that last year, Bill, my husband's agent, had to cancel a lot of our things because of COVID, and they were not willing to do masks or anything, or any social distancing or whatever. And so she had to cancel. And I offered at that time that because one of the families we knew extremely well, we had done for years, I offered to the agent that we would do individual videos for each child, because I had memories of each child and their accomplishments and so forth that I had made notes on. And I really wanted to, like the little boy who gave up his, all out of the clear blue sky, gave up his pacifier and gave it to Santa and said he was going to quit. He was a little tiny toddler. And, you know, so you wanted to talk to, I said, I will make individual videos for each of them under their names. And my agent would not even approach them to tell them that we would do this for them. So they ended up without a clause of any kind last year. And I feel really badly about that. And so we have a statement in there that says that we will not contact the client ourselves. And I'm not sure what to do about that, because in this case, I felt that I really, for the benefit of the children and their Santa experience, that we should have been able to contact them and say, we will, you know, we will do this for Johnny and for Sally and so forth. And we were not given that opportunity by an agent. So Janet, please tell us about your experience with an agent, if you would, please.
Well, I love my agent. She keeps, you know, I've been doing this, I guess this would be the 4th year, but I skipped last year. But she's wonderful. I really love her. She keeps me busy. I have years of experience as a professional clown. So, I mean, I know how to do this all very well, and it works very smoothly. And I don't want to promote myself. I don't want to do the work to get my own clients. But all the gigs I had last year were public events that I didn't have any house visits, which I think is what you're talking about. So I don't even do that. But the reason I canceled last year, I had a full schedule, and I canceled a few months earlier before the season because my agent told me I couldn't wear a mask. She told me I could only wear the plastic shield, and I wasn't willing to go out without a face mask on. And so I canceled, and I've got a few gigs booked this year already. One just canceled though, because they were booked before Delta, you know. One just canceled, and I've got a few this year, and I'm going to tell my agent that I reserve the right to wear a mask. If I should decide, you know, I'll still wear the plastic one, but also I had one made, a pretty velvety, red velvety one made when I had my dress made to match the dress. So I'm going to just tell her I reserve the right. You can't tell me that I can't wear a mask. No one can tell me. I'm sorry. My husband has had cancer. He's immunocompromised, and he's my driver. So that comes first. But I also asked her if there was any opportunity for Mrs. Claus's to do any virtual visits, and she said no. So that wasn't even an option, although my internet is not that great. So that's probably just as well. But yeah, I was kind of angry. I was told not to wear a mask. You can't tell me that, you know, you just can't tell me not to. I'm sorry. I'm in Texas too, by the way, which you probably hear all about the stupid
right
regarding masks. So,
by the way, your backdrop is working very, very well. You don't have a halo. You do not have a halo around you, and I am impressed.
Oh yeah, it is working good here. I usually have a green screen, but it's not behind me right now. But I got this from Tim Hart, who makes these. He gives them away for free, these backgrounds. I've got a whole bunch of them. They're wonderful.
Awesome.
It's very, very nice. I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janet, for sharing that. Did anyone else have an example of an unexpected experience and how you're going to share it? And then we'll take one more of those, and then we're going to move to the questions that were posed by the group.
Okay, I'm going to step in here again. Every season, Bill and I have come up with one unusual circumstance that was interesting. One was we were in a car accident on Christmas Eve going from place to place and had to contact the agent and then the clients to let them know, do you want us to still come? And we are like an hour late because we've been in a car accident. One case was when Bill's mentor suddenly passed away, and we stepped in whenever we could to fill places. And then 2 years ago, one of our good friends also ended up with a problem and lost his voice, and we had to step in. So we've had kind of the opposite, where for the most part, we've had to step in and for someone else who's had a problem. But I can tell probably the best, and if you can find a group of people that you work well with, Ellen, I know that you have the names of some of the ladies that maybe you could work on getting a, or maybe we can work with you and just do a virtual tea or something.
Well, I think I sent them to you, Judy.
Okay.
Sometime
But
back.
maybe
I
we
sent
can
them
figure
in,
out a way of networking with the ladies. I find that
'cause
women usually when they're away from their husbands,
I know, but I've
and
been
the peacock
warned.
syndrome.
I've been warned.
We'll take care of you,
Yes, I
Ellen.
know.
We got you covered.
But I've still got the list if you need it again.
Okay.
So, but yeah, try to network as well as you can, ladies.
Yes.
And I'm going to turn it back to Deanna.
Okay, great. Jocelyn, did you have something to add?
I was going to say just add a little levity to it. Oklahoma, we've got a fairly large group, and we have a fair number of pretty vociferous and opinionated men in the group. But you know what I ended up doing? I ran for president, and since it's almost impossible to get people to raise their hands when somebody says, okay, we need a volunteer to run for president this year. Once I raised my hand, 2 other women raised their hands to run for 2 other offices open. So now we have 3 women in leadership in the group and 2 Santas. So there are ways sometimes to just take the bulls by the horn and turn it around.
And in Ellen's case, it would be wonderful if that was even an option.
Yeah, I realize I'm in a pretty good place to be able to do that, honestly.
Yes, and congratulations to Jocelyn for being the first elected president of Oklahoma Santas. She follows Betty Motter, who was the first elected president of Peachtree Santas, and so it's recognized, you know, the value and the perspective, the point of view that ladies bring, and it's nice to see that. So I'm going to share the questions, and Lance, I'm going to cue you up because your question is going to be first. Let me share. Where did we go? Right here. So we have 5 questions that were posed, and the first question was from Lance. He asked about what he could do as a solo Mrs. Claus ally to help promote solo Mrs. Clauses. So before we open up a response from the group, Lance, do you want to add a little background to your question?
Sure. So the issue that I'm always dealing with is that I'm overbooked. And of course, on the weekends, I have 17 people who want 1 slot. And what I'm trying to do is get my clients to understand that a visit from Mrs. Claus is just as good, if not better, than a visit from Santa. I'm not having a lot of success with clients. So what I'm looking for is your experience as solo Mrs. Clauses to let me know what I can do to put extra value whenever I try to tell a client to have a Mrs. Claus visit.
Lance, I will tell you what my experience was the last couple of years. And we'll actually have to go back quite a few years with how this opportunity kind of presented itself. I applied through another Santa who was looking for a Mrs. Claus to attend a tree lighting at the Biltmore Resort in Scottsdale or in Phoenix. And so I talked to Stan and he asked me to join him. I called the resort to schedule a walkthrough and to meet the contact. I had my one-page entertainer's resume with flyers of what kinds of things I did as a Mrs. Claus. And down there was cookie decorating, baking, or that sort of thing. The contact saw that she wanted to know more about it. It has turned into an annual cookie decorating with Mrs. Claus at the Biltmore. So that was one thing that the ladies can do to help, share that with Santas, and then Santas, you can share that. I think it's helping to paint the picture of what Mrs. Claus would do so the client can see what that visit looks like. And I also have now partnered with a local entertainment company. This woman, Jenna, she does the princess parties, and she does organize any kind of visit with fairy tale characters. She has partnered with me. Last year I did cookie deliveries. So while a child would love to have time with Santa, to sit on Santa's knee and share a wish list, what is it that Santa can help paint a picture? That would be my experience and what has worked for me in the last several years.
Okay.
And remember too, Lance, Mrs. Claus knows a lot of the secret things about the North Pole, about things that go on that she can talk to the children about. And also for some families, if you know them and you think that some of the children may be leery of Santa, I found that in many cases, Mrs. Claus is much more approachable, especially sometimes with special needs kids, because women's voices are often softer. We're not as large in presence as Santa. So I've found with some special needs children or even young adults, Mrs. Claus is a better fit.
Exactly.
I see, Ellen, you've raised your hand.
I did. I was going to just say what Carol just said, that Mrs. Claus is really everybody's grandma. And the children that are often afraid of Santa will come to us, and they will cling to us. And we are, generally speaking, and it's a generalization, but we are generally speaking gentler and quieter and more welcoming. Our beards are not as full, although we might have a small one because we're old. But we're not as scary, as Carol had said. A lot of kids we know of a particular age are afraid of Santa. And so it's been my experience that you can talk to people, families perhaps, Lance, that are used to having Santa. It's like, well, they were really afraid of me. Mrs. Claus, they're not going to be afraid of her, and you try it one year. And if you don't like it, then we can do something different next year. But when I was working with a different Santa, that was one of the approaches that we used. And it got to the point that when I stopped working with that Santa at one of the churches that I do, I said, I'm not working with Santa so-and-so anymore, but I can get another one. They said, no, don't. Just you. We really want just you. The kids like you better, which shocked me to death, but that was fine. So I think that that's one of the things that you can do to help sell us as Mrs. Claus, is that we're not scary. We're not as loud. The kids will come to us often when they won't go to Santa. One of my roles when working with the Santa is to have the children that are afraid come to me. I warm them up. We build a rapport. and then they'll go to Santa. You know, and I think a lot of us find ourselves in that role of being really nurturing with the children, and that calms them and comforts them and puts them in a position where they're much more willing then to not see Santa as so scary. That's all.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Well, I can jump in. I will jump in here now and say to Lance that I have been stood up on a previous engagement with another Santa who was filling in for my husband that evening. And I knew the party. I had been there before. And I walked in and I made him an excuse as to why Santa couldn't be there. I don't know exactly where I pulled that one out, but you end up being very creative. And the family enjoyed my visit so much that they said, gee, you can come back anytime you want to. But I want everybody to know that you're not just Mrs. Claus. That word just should not be in anybody's vocabulary.
No.
You're just not just Mrs. Claus. And as far as a library visit, when we were first starting out, and that was 2012, I went to a local library and told them that I'd love to come in and read books to children and do some dances and write letters to Santa. And after a few years, that idea blossomed. The library started paying me really well. And that librarian told another librarian. And then they said, well, why don't you bring your Santa in and we'll make it another event on Christmas and we'll just have story time with Santa. So that it led to another event, and it just keeps on blossoming once you put yourself out there as Mrs. Claus. But remember, you're not just Mrs. Claus. And that's all I have to say. There's so many ways to market Mrs. Claus. Oh, yes. When my husband was out, I did contact the local radio station and the local paper. The small town has a list of Santa's and Mrs. Claus's, well, not Mrs. Claus's that I knew of, but they have a list and they will be glad to put that out on the radio that contact so-and-so, they're looking for Santa. That's a very big deal there in southern Indiana. Sorry, I was from California. Southern Indiana, to reach out, and it was a way that you didn't have to belong to a club at that time. Just list the local television station and radios and stuff, and they'll be glad to find help for you. That's all I have to say. Good luck in this year.
Thank you all. I really appreciate your input.
Anybody else questions?
So Lance, okay, I don't know if anyone can see me or not. I'm on my phone because my computer, for whatever reason, is acting up.
We can see you.
So Lance, one of the other things is that you're a solo Santa, right? You don't have a Mrs. Claus. Is that correct?
I do, but I'm always looking for more.
Okay.
Love
I'm
it.
not. My wife does not let me use the word harem, but I like to say that my group of Mrs. Clauses are an enchantment. So I have two. I'm looking for a third, and Carol and I are in discussion.
Got it. I understand. We
Perfect.
we have a couple Mrs. Clauses that we do the same kind of jokes with because they have 3 or 4 Santas that they work with. One of the Santas that we met, we discovered uses, they have a set fee for himself and Mrs. Claus. And then they say, well, how much without Mrs. Claus? And he adds on $25 to $50 more. And when they say why, so if say it's $150 for Santa and Mrs. Claus, but it's $200 if it's just him. When they say how much without Mrs. Claus, he'll say, well, that'll be $200. And they say, why is it more? And he says, because I have more work to do when she's not there. So I don't know if that would help you at all, but yes, I know Trish had to do a couple home visits also just because of Larry being in the hospital. And they, as far as I remember, they loved her.
Yep.
And
Paid me the full amount.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
And
it's all about the experience.
I have to say something.
Awesome.
One of my jobs I got because I met this lady at a Starbucks, and she called me after Christmas because they always had a big party with a Santa. And apparently, I don't know what happened. All she said was Santa got weird this year. And Santa's never gone back, and Mrs. Claus has gone every year.
That's great.
Fortunately, I have to say I probably know some of those getting weird Santas.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. I think Everett and Dana are on the call right now, and Everett had posed the question about wanting some advice about marketing to and negotiating with photographers. Who has worked directly with doing your own negotiating with photographers? Carol.
I started with a photographer who wanted to do, she does a Santa experience, and she did a thing. She does like 20 minutes with Santa and 10 minutes with Mrs. Claus. And she was starting out, and I know she had expenses because she was renting a beautiful home and everything else to do it. So I had told her that I think I wanted 10% of her gross. And she agreed to that. So because I knew she was paying Santa, she was supplying everything. Plus she was doing all the photography, all the editing and everything else. So that was the fee I set with her. And it was a reasonable amount for the amount of time I spent with her. And she was starting her business. Now she will be changing Santas this year. So I'm not sure what is going to be happening with that. I may be renegotiating with her now, but she had a set Santa before I started with her. So we'll see what happened. Last year, again, because of COVID, she did some outside photographs with Wayne. She started using Wayne now from Akron because the Santa she had him, she got me, and then she decided she liked me better than him and said, "Do you know another Santa?" But so I'll see what happens with her this year, and if she even has it this year again because of the increased infection.
Great, Carol. I wanted to give some of you who have been particularly quiet. I tend to like call on people who are quiet. So before I do that, Ellen Mahaffey, if there's anyone who has been kind of on the quiet side and you have something to say or you have something to ask,
I have something.
Is Ellen still here?
Thank you, Cynthia. Yes.
I have something about photographers.
Perfect.
This summer at School of Santas, Jessica Rosa was there and presented. And one of the things that she was talking about is to know what kind of photo shoot it is you're doing. If it's like, come in, sit down, take your picture, move on. Or if you're going to be with Santa for 10 minutes, if you're going to be more like a Santa experience, of course, you're going to be able to charge more if it's like a Santa experience than if it's like a one and done kind of situation. And so that was good info for me.
Great, Cynthia, thanks. And I know that one of the Santa, I work with two different photographers. One is through an agent and one is through direct, the Santa negotiates. And he charges the same rate that we would charge for an event, for the hourly visit. And so my fee is separate, his fee is separate. So they're put together and that's how he negotiates. Everett, did you have a specific example or situation that you wanted to share? And then Ellen raised her hand, but I wanted to give Everett to add some context to the question.
Is Everett here still?
Well, he was. I admitted him, but I don't know if he's.
I saw they left a while ago.
Okay, well, Everett, when you listen to this tape, you've got some good advice. So Ellen, you raised your hand. Ellen Turpinen.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
We're in another storm again and we just lost our internet, so I'm on my phone.
Oh, okay.
Go figure. But I wanted to to share with you about photographers. We work with quite a few, three pretty consistent throughout the year. And we do different events. We do, of course, the Christmas in July and the Christmas family pictures in October. But we also do little mini sessions throughout the year with different photographers that helps. But along with doing a percentage, we have some other options. We also do an hourly fee. And depending on what your need is, we also do some barter and trade too. So sometimes thinking outside the box, if you need, you know, a photo shoot, but it's, you know, not in your budget right now, they're willing to barter and trade. Some prefer to do the hourly wage, some prefer the percentage. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that there's, you know, more than one option there for photographers.
I like the barter and trade idea. What kind of things do you barter and trade for?
So we barter and trade professional photo shoots, along with every photo that they take that we're allowed to market it. So that is really beneficial to us, because every photo they take at that session, it is in our contract that we have permission to use it to market for our purposes. And so that puts value to that barter and trade for us, along with having a professional photo shoot. And for us, because we still have elves at home, we include our elves with us with that professional photo shoot for us that we want, like, in exchange for our services for them. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you. And Everett and Dane, I'll tell you that this has been recorded. I know that you've been in and out, so you've been having some technical issues, but we're on your question right now. And there have been some good examples about negotiating and whether you do it solo or through an agent. And one of the things that I would also suggest for the marketing is that you really need to have a good business card, a good entertainment resume, and a really good photo to begin with. And like so many other examples, when you market yourself to anyone, whether it's a client or a photographer who is a client, paint the picture. What are they going to get that will set you apart from your competitors? So we'll talk more about that as well. Okay, thanks for that. There's
a portfolio is very helpful.
Okay, I have one other suggestion, and that is that I will have to look it up because I know I have one. And this was given to me by Santa Marty, who is not readily available anymore. He's from Hawaii, and he has been a Santa for years and years and years and years and years. Anyhow, and he has a contract for his photographers. Plus, he has a third-party contract that it says your photographer cannot use any of your photography to use it as marketing. Not marketing for himself, but oh dear, my computer just decided to kick in. So I hope I don't lose you here because I'm on my phone. Okay, so what he has is a third party. You have to sign and agree to that if you're going to use it, and he's going to sell it to Coca-Cola. He's going to sell it to the local restaurant that, your favorite pizza place. Then he has to sign a third party. Well, he doesn't have to sign, but whoever is using it, that is another contract completely. It is, if your picture is going to be used professionally for, an Irish cheese or, or, that you happen to, or an ice cream, that you happen to be eating and they took a picture of you, then if they try to sell that, they can't do that without paying you because it's a third party thing. Another thing that I know that goes on frequently is that photographers often will have their customers pay them cash, and they will pay you cash so that there is a lesser amount of income that is reported for taxes. That's just plain straightforward and out there.
Thanks, Judy. Everett, did you have some additional question or example around your question?
No, that we're tracking now. We're normal on our desktop computer. All we can get is a small screen. We couldn't really respond to that, so I had to jump on the phone.
Okay.
But that's the information I'm looking for.
Perfect.
And give me some to go on. I've already booked with 2 photographers, possibly a third, trying to push her into the month of November.
Okay.
So,
awesome.
Lance, I will try to look up that contract that Marty gave me that shows for a third party, but I can't guarantee I'm going to be able to find it immediately. This was given to me probably 5 or 6 years ago, so I'm going to have to go way back into my files. But just needle me here and there, you know, through a message or whatever, or through SNHU. You can reach me through our webpage. Then you can just send it there and it'll send me an email. And I'll see if I can find a copy of that third-party contract for you, just to make sure that they're not going to use your. I also stipulate with people I don't know that they cannot alter our pictures. I don't suddenly want, not that anybody would want to use this face, but I would hate to suddenly find my face on a nude, you know, Santa and Mrs. Claus in the bathtub, of which they photoshopped us in. You know what I'm saying? So, so I also put into a thing that says you cannot alter, other than Photoshop to take out strange backgrounds and so forth. They cannot alter our pictures or use our images in my statement is in any manner that would be contradictory to the image of Santa and Mrs. Claus.
Right.
Does that help you?
Thanks, Judy. So Eileen posed the question, and we've had some discussion about this already tonight, but Eileen posed the question and how are you getting more clients willing to pay to add Mrs. Claus? Judy shared that, you know, charge more if you don't have her. We talked about painting the picture of the experience, but some clients are still going to come down to it's just a Santa thing and they don't see what is going to be different or how it's going to be better to include Mrs. Claus. Eileen, do you have some background to your question? And then we'll open it up to the group to get you some answers. Eileen, you might need to unmute. Is she? Yeah.
Sorry, it does help. What my husband, Santa does all the arrangements. That's his thing. And what he used to do was say, would you like Mrs. Claus? And people say yes. And he'd say, okay, oh no, we don't want Mrs. Claus. So now it's gotten to the point where I sat him down. Of course, Santa Ana University helped. I sat him down and said, you know, you need to not ask. You need to suggest, and you need to tell them this is why they want Mrs. Claus. And it has gotten better. What he has done is how many children are you having? And if they say they're having more than 5 or 6, he'll say, you know, you really need Mrs. Claus because she can entertain those kids that are not on my lap. And so everybody's busy and engaged and not just sitting there watching me talk to one kid and getting pictures. And it's gone over very well at different parties. Most people will take it. The photographers are not into it. They just want Santa, and he has the same photographers every year. We've done things, we've kind of bartered like family pictures with them, and both of us as Santa and Mrs. Claus in the pictures, things like that. So they've worked with me. We've only had one really use me, and she was a blast because I did cookie decorating, and she taught me to let snow. She wanted snow while they were decorating cookies. You try a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old with a bowl of chocolate chips or snowing with white snow, and you know the whole place is covered in snow. The sugar's everywhere, but that's what she wanted, and we had a blast. But yeah, but it would be nicer to find ways to convince more families to include Mrs. Claus. And I started going out, with him, just, going out and not being, not charging for me. And several families gave me a nice tip because they realized I was, he'd say, I know you didn't ask for Mrs. Claus, but she comes with me. And they were really nice and gave me a really nice tip. Like, they walked right up and said to me outside, "This is for you. Thank you for coming." So, it was nice. But, it's just if we could get more ways and stuff, because I'm looking to do more than what I do. But I think I'm going to get a lot more into volunteering this year if things clear up with this COVID stuff and all.
Thanks, Eileen. Ellen, you raised your hand?
Ellen, me? Yeah.
Ellen, you.
It seems to me that a very simple thing, if it's possible where you are, would be if it's someone new, although you can also do it with others as well, is when somebody says, "What's your rate?" And you say, "My rate is blank, blank, blank," and that includes Mrs. Claus. Just, it's a given that you're bringing Mrs. Claus. And I have a Santa that I have worked with done that. And people were like, and it's like, they're saying, "Well, what if we don't want Mrs. Claus?" It's the same amount, but you get 2 for 1. So it's just a given. I think you just tell people what you're going to do, and they go, "Oh, okay, all right, bring Mrs. Claus."
That works. That's what we're looking at with new people. But right now, we've been in this enough that we are pretty much going back to the same families all the time.
But couldn't you
so
say that this year we're doing with Mrs. Claus? You just say this is what we're doing now.
Yeah, but I think he's looking at doing that. He is looking at doing that. And it's mostly just the families. Any of his corporates and all, and the photographers don't use Mrs. Claus, but the photographers and the families are the ones that don't seem to want to add it to there. So, but we're trying, and and that's a really good suggestion, because we have talked about that, if it's someone new. And that's where he got into really pushing the Mrs. Claus. We have one big event that we do for 4 hours, and they weren't so sure, and they said, "Oh yeah, we'll do Mrs. Claus and all." And I actually don't even do the pictures. Their lines are so long that I walk the lines and entertain the kids, and that's become my thing. And I do pictures as I'm walking the lines. The parents are using their phones anyway.
Yeah.
So I'll do pictures with the kids that way. And I'm totally fine with it. I don't need to be up in the chair or anything. I like being out with the kids and the families. So, it's all worked for us over the years. But yeah, we do.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, that's one of the nice things about doing Mrs. Claus is we have more flexibility.
Yes.
If they need us in the chair, we can be in the chair. If they need us in the group, we can be in the group. If they need us to be in that corner, take care of that group of people, we can do that. We have much more flexibility.
And I think that's also going to speak to painting the picture of what Mrs. Claus is going to do, and finding the issue or the problem that the client didn't think of, especially if there are going to be a lot of those children there. They didn't think about who's going to be entertaining the children when they're in line waiting to see Santa. They didn't think about the child who's been standing in line for so long is going to start ready to lose it and have a tantrum. They didn't think about the additional photos that they're going to have to look back on. So if you think about it in a way that what problem did the client not think about that only Mrs. Claus can solve?
Mm-hmm.
So, but it is getting better. I also like the idea. So I'm sorry, Judy, did you have something?
I'm sorry. I apologize. Eileen, you brought up a statement and you said we have a 4-hour job. And that brings me to a Mrs. Claus that is not here, but it's in the same vein of what Carol Baker was talking about. And she has finally said, you know what, more than 4 hours is just too much. And she has told her clients that she has had for years, "I'm sorry, I'm not doing more than 4 hours." Now, this is a person who has much better bladder control than I do. And she actually does 4 hours without ever having to get up and take go check on the reindeer. So, but I think that that's one of the things about self-care and things that Carol was talking about, where you just have to say no. And you just said we have a 4-hour job, and it made me think of that. And that is that it's okay to also put a time limit on your thing and say, you know, this is just too tiring to do a 4-hour job. Yes, we can do that. A 6-hour job. We just got a call for Bill to do something that was like 8 hours. And it's like, oh my goodness, it was for a major museum in Chicago. And it's like, you know, are you working in breaks? Are you working in a lunch hour? This type of thing. That's a lot to ask of any one person. And so this is where the advice from Carol comes in good too. But that's your comment made me think of that. Off of subject, but I appreciate you letting me talk.
Thanks,
Yes,
Judy.
I have that, Judy. And that's where some of the families that don't want me, and it's like in the middle of the day, like we've done like this 4-hour place, and then we've got 5 or 6 more little ones and all. And someone doesn't want me, and I'm like, don't push it. And he's like, why? That's my break. And I go out to dinner. Well, one night he did, this one family, and they didn't want me. Every time he says, you have a large crowd. Nope, they don't want me. So he showed up, and they didn't ask for him to bring his bag because he writes all that down. He gets there, and they said, where is your Santa bag? And he said, you didn't ask for it. Oh, yes, we need it. So he called me, and I was at Kentucky Fried Chicken eating dinner, and I had to throw the stuff in the bag and rush over and stuff their gifts in the bag. And then the guy was like, we need to get it in. I said, don't worry. And I just ad-libbed and put it on my back and walked in and went, Santa, I can't believe those elves took your bag and you didn't and made this whole story up. And they never even said thank you. So I don't even want to do the family at that point. But it was so funny because he was like, they never ask. He writes all of this down, and he always double checks when he double talks to them, and nothing about the bag. So he just thought they weren't doing it this year. But yeah, we've had that, and I have run in with it all. So I do take a break. He doesn't push for it, but I need a break, and I welcome it sometimes. So
Thanks everybody. That was a great conversation. So Kimberly, if you're around still, you want to know how to do more Mrs. Claus events and how to be an ambassador for a company. What's your problem, Kimberly? Is she still around? Oh,
there we go. I'm here. I didn't leave.
Never.
The brat is still here. I'm not sure about, like, I know we had talked about it before with back in one of our virtual visit things that we've done with Santa Ana about being an ambassador for a company. And I think I have it in my head, but I'm not 100% sure because we didn't like talk a lot about it. So I was just trying to figure out if maybe we could like go back and touch on that and see if maybe what I'm thinking is.
Okay, so are you thinking of the we'll drop her name. Are you thinking of the Jackie Chamberlain example where she is the Mrs. Claus for so many specific events? She's the Mrs. Claus primary one for Layman's department store. And how did she get that? And is that what you're
sort of? Yes.
Yes.
Like we have like how would I go about approaching someone just as a Mrs. Claus and not with a Santa? Like there's a few different like little shops, and some of the smaller little communities and that I know that they don't have like a Mrs. Claus or Santa. And then just like just walk in there and say, hey.
So Jocelyn, this is me. Jocelyn, I'm going to put you on the spot with this question because I know that Bob has done that very thing through, some Facebook posts that, Santa likes going to this business when he's in Tulsa, and he has now become, like the Santa for. for X business. How, other than going through an agent to be hired for a corporate client and be the same one, and then we can talk a little bit about how you can, I think in marketing, the bottom line, the marketing yourself, whether it's as a Santa or as a Mrs. Claus to a particular company, is the same approach. What are you going to give them that they can't get anywhere else? But
Right.
Jocelyn, if you could answer how you and Bob have approached being the.
I sure will. Now, he was doing this before I joined, a little bit before I joined him, but it still has continued. He has his separate Santa Claus of Tulsa page, and he will regularly, as Santa Claus of Tulsa, really focus on small businesses in Tulsa, and particularly ones that seem to have our one of our favorite ones is a local candy store that they do candy and gifts. And I'd gone there for years to get gingerbread house candy. And so he just started following them on Facebook, and then to where they get to know the name, it's that name recognition.
Right.
It's not, he'll just get on there and like something. He may make a comment, a cute, silly joke as Santa, like, oh, be sure you save enough truffles. It's, Mrs. Claus's birthday is coming up. Be sure that you do that. And that's worked with quite a few companies around town. We did it the same, and we went out a little bit, not necessarily as Santa and Mrs. Claus, but light, okay? And wearing our red shirts, and he always wears his red hat, to our local botanic gardens. And we became members very early on. And so Bob's a really good yacker and talking, and we've built up over the years, and we're at the point now with the botanic gardens that they tend to want him a lot. So many evenings out there that if they don't get with us early in the year enough to tell us what nights they want, he's going to be booked already for someone else. So the last time we were out there, we didn't get to do them last year. They didn't do anything. But 2 years ago, when we were out there and we had that night, we said, because they had seen me, we'd gone out there and done a separate Santa and Mrs. Claus together. So we actually advertised one night when he couldn't be there that Mrs. Claus, or I think actually I did, because he's Botanic Saint Nick. So he's a little bit more of the spirit of Christmas present in that. So I came as Mother Christmas that year, just a little bit more nature. But a lot of it is, and I'm not with him at all of the events either. I go to some, I don't go to some, and I'm getting a lot of better ideas for that tonight. But we've never used an agent. We never do. He just hoofs it. He talks to people on the phone. I talk to people on the phone. And then it spreads more by word of mouth with the other small businesses.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jocelyn.
You're welcome.
Some of you who have been quiet, I don't know if you're just being a sponge tonight. Belinda, I know, and Carla, you're kind of on the quiet side tonight. So if you have anything to add or ask, please. And welcome, Lori. I know you joined halfway in. Other suggestions for Kimmy and for all of us who are interested in becoming that ambassador, for a jewelry store. Who better than Mrs. Claus could help a husband or a boyfriend buy a nice piece of jewelry on Christmas Eve at a nice jewelry store? Wouldn't we like the bangle? Think about those kinds of angles. But who else has a piece of advice for Kimmy, and then we'll move to the last question that's been asked.
Okay, Kimmy, do you have a brand?
Do I have a what?
A brand.
Have you, like Trisha's Joyous Mrs. Claus, and you've got your Kimmy Claus.
I have Kimmy Claus.
Okay,
I haven't really did a brand yet.
Yeah. Well, Kimmy Claus is close.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So do you have an entertainer's resume?
I've been working on one. It's not 100% finished, but it's really close.
Kimmy,
Being
remind me, and I'll send you a copy of mine so you'll have a worksheet.
I already have it.
Oh, do you?
I
Okay.
have all of them. I kind of
Okay.
mimicked a little bit of yours and
Okay, good.
Jackie's and Deanna's.
Okay.
Good.
So
Good.
one of the things that Deanna and I have both touched upon, but we are in the midst of expanding upon it. And one of them is if you remember our favorite commercial of it's M&S from Australia, I believe, where Mrs. Claus is like, James Bond, type of thing.
Yes.
So one of the
Mrs.
things
Claus
that,
saves Christmas.
Yes.
right. Deanna and I have both together came up with the same at different times, have come up with the idea that you need a business suit, so to speak.
Mhm.
And I happen to have a dress that unfortunately I'm going to have to lose my COVID weight to get back into with a spectacular hat. And it kind of gives me the feeling that I certainly don't look like that actress, but I get the feeling that when I walk into a place with this red dress that has a matching suit coat to it, a long, like knee-length suit coat and stuff like this, and a spectacular hat, that it's like I'm going to draw heads as I walk into a room. And I believe that if you go in with an entertainer's resume and you are dressed in a business suit as Mrs. Claus, a really nice red suit, a really nice red dress, even a pair of pants and a really nice shirt, something like this. You walk in, you hand him your business card, you hand him your entertainer's resume and said, I believe that you really need me to be here the last week before Christmas, because we all know, I'm saying a jewelry store. We all know that men wait until the last minute, and who better than Mrs. Claus can tell them when they are looking at a necklace that, oh, a pair of earrings would really go nicely with this.
Yes.
Anyhow, and sell yourself that way and eventually become the ambassador for their company, because it could be that Mrs. Claus would be there on Valentine's Day as well for special occasions. There are other companies, that's just the easiest example I can come up with. But I believe that it is not a Mrs. Claus dress with a fur and all that, but it is
No.
a business suit that says, I am a professional Mrs. Claus, and I am here, and I am who you need.
Mhm.
And we are still expanding on this. I think it's going to probably be part of our, SNHU 102. But how to sell your brand and market yourself this way with your entertainer's resume, and also the way that you present yourself so that when you walk into the room, people are going to say, I want that woman to be my Mrs. Claus. So I don't know if that helps you, but I suggest put together something that is, that stands out so much that people are like, oh my gosh, and run away. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I hope, and then get your resume together, and then, just, stick it.
Mhm.
You just walk in there and you're going to be determined, even though you're scared. Say,
And-
I am scared to death, but I'm going to do this scared.
But I'm Mrs. Claus.
But here's the other thing. Margie's raised her hand. Ellen's raised her hand. Jocelyn's waving her
Yeah.
hand. And I want to add one comment first as well for everybody in the room tonight. Is we talk about this in the sessions as well. Is, do you have your 30-second elevator speech? And that if you had 30 seconds with a prospective client, you're stuck in an elevator, because that's about how long you're going to be in an elevator, getting from one floor to another or until that prospective client. You got 30 seconds to sell yourself. Put that together, and that's your opening line for that. Margie, you raised your hand. Unmute and There you go.
Here I am.
Hi, Margie.
Oh, hi there. How are you?
Awesome.
Okay. I make a suggestion for some of you. If you do an event with your Santa or with a Santa, be sure to get photographs of you at that event. And you can use this if you go out to a prospective client. We have a candy store that makes homemade candy canes that's no more than 5 blocks from where I live. I went there numerous times. I was going to do it for free. I wanted to go there as Mrs. Claus and make candy canes. I just thought I wanted to get these photos. Well, there was a gentleman who owned it. Now he has since sold it, and he never was interested in having me come there. Unfortunately, I spoke with the new owner, and she was somewhat interested, and then COVID hit. So I haven't got to do that. But I went outside of there in my Mrs. Claus outfit and took photographs of me in front of that candy store. And I posted them in their Facebook page. And people loved that, to see Mrs. Claus outside of the candy store. And so don't hesitate to take photographs when you go to someplace and show people where you've been and what you've done. In your resume, you'll have that information, but sometimes photographs is a little bit of a help with that. So that's a suggestion I would give to people.
Awesome,
And back,
Margie. Thank you. Ellen.
Videos also.
Yeah, I'd like to build on, go in with the resume. I have a Mrs. Claus outfit that I go in. I don't know if that made sense. It's not a fancy suit with an elaborate hat, but it's Mrs. Clausy. But instead of just taking in my resume and my card, thrift stores always have Christmas mugs for $1. And so I will go and I will buy a Christmas mug. I'll put a pretty ribbon on the handle, and inside the mug, I will put my resume rolled up with a nice red bow, my business card. I have some pens that I had made up for my small business, and a candy cane, and it's because it's easy to take a business card and set it aside. It's easy to take a resume and put it on the pile. But when they've got a mug with all this stuff, it's not quite so easy to dismiss.
That's neat.
I love that idea. I love that idea. Okay.
That's excellent.
Just to be mindful of our time, there was one more question, and this is a really important one for all of us. From Brenda. Let's hear from Brenda. She wants to know where to go for quality dresses that are unique and still affordable, because it's expensive to be a Claus. Did you know that? It's really expensive to be a Claus, but it doesn't have to be. And Margie and Trish are two of the poster children for finding thrift store things. So Brenda, what are you looking for in particular, or just generally looking for clothing and accessories? Is Brenda still on? Is Brenda still here? Oh. I thought Brenda had to drop off. Okay, so let's just, so that when she comes back and listens to this, where do you go?
I will say right away that thrift stores are your best friend. That big old red wool coat that I wore at the Santa Nana in August of 2018 is still one of my favorite finds. And I encourage everybody to go out and venture around, look for that special item, and you can embellish it and add to it. But this year I was lucky enough to find a green coat very similar to my red coat. And I thank everybody for cleaning out their closets and letting someone else enjoy something that they can turn into something marvelous. So encourage you to please clean out your closets and let somebody that is looking for something special again to wear. I've got a pair of pants that I'm looking at that probably from the 70s and Twiggy probably wore. There's no way I could fit into them, but I ended up with 24 inches of waist after I took out the pleats in it. So that's another project I'm working on. But the first dress that I bought online from Mrs. Claus in Arizona, and she had noted that it was pink fur. I got the fur off and I was able to get it bleached out white again and put it back on and added some embellishment to the dress, and it's worked out fine. After I did get the pink fur white, I took the dress, the red dress, and was able to get the red out of it. It doesn't seep anymore, and I scotch guarded it 3 times, so it had a very, very heavy protection on it. That's something that you should do when you get something new, is if you can't get it clean, make sure you scotch guard it. That way it won't leave red everywhere. There are so many things that you can make, buy. I've done a French style apron out of a white duvet cover. I've made skirts out of tablecloths. The possibilities are endless, and I'm never been one to sew with a pattern. So I just kind of open up the imagination and go from there. And I'm looking forward to the season with my new green coat, my green wool coat, and my skinny mini pants that are now 24 inches wider. And I know Carol has laughed at me in the past, but I still wear my favorite red size 2 prom dress that someone didn't want anymore, and opened up the seams and made a skirt out of that. So the possibilities, great. If you buy something new, try that Scotch Guard product on it, and hope that it doesn't leave red stains, because my first year I did have red stains on a tan leather seat, and it's not pretty to get those out. So enjoy yourself, have fun, and just be yourself. That's the best thing. Be comfortable in your own skin and what you look like.
I don't laugh at that skirt because I went and did the same thing with a size 4 dress.
I just love the creativity. That's amazing.
The most important thing for when Brenda comes into this is that she finds things that she's comfortable in. Because if you're comfortable in what you're wearing, then you don't think about what you're wearing and you can just be Mrs. Claus.
Mm-hmm. Great advice too, Carol. And I know that some of the Mrs. Clauses out there have, like, in real life, we have the little black dress. And with Mrs. Claus, you can have your basic red dress and change that look with accessories. Change it with scarves, change it with you dress it up, dress it down. But there are a lot of vendors out there that can charge a little to a lot. There's a lot of accessory shops, but I'm with Trish and Margie. The thrift shops are amazing, just amazing.
I had the best find last year. There was a picture on Facebook of a lady with a crown, and it had like rhinestones and glittered on it, and I just loved it. And all of a sudden it dawned on me, that's similar to what my daughter wore on her wedding day. And the second daughter wore the same one. Well, she left it in her closet. Guess who has it now? It was the best find I had. And I was like, now I know where it, and she laughs because that's where she knows I wear it. I added some red to it and it worked perfect, especially since I don't really wear a hat. I have a hood on my jacket, so I don't wear a hat. And this was good, when you push the hood down, I still had something in my hair. It was comfortable, easy, and totally free because the kids left it home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, so those are all of the questions that we had. I mean, we can keep going on with some conversation and some questions, but just to kind of like wind down just a hair a little bit, I want to take a group photo of all of us and make sure that we can post that and keep it for posterity. So that means get ready to smile in a minute. Let me stop sharing here. And so, but while we're getting ready to be pretty and smiling, or turn your video camera on if you so choose. Yes, everybody's primping everything. Okay, let me do that first. I'm gonna do 3, 2, 1, and we'll smile, okay? Lance, I wanna see you smile big. All right. 3, 2, 1. Gotcha. And you're beautiful. Okay. Are there other questions you want to talk about? We want to let you know that Judy and I are going to be offering some online sessions, not just the webinars. We're going to keep doing these. We'll get back into the swing of this for sure, but we're going to start doing more of the core curriculum. We are going to, no later than October, partly because I need to get back to Arizona at some point in this year. We're going to be doing the online version of character on the inside, creating your backstory and your character. And we're also going to be doing character on the outside, as far as developing your style and your brand, which kind of touches in on marketing. So October will be a really good time to help fine tune that before we start kicking off the season in November, December, whether it's photo shoots or visits. And we are also going to be bringing back the 10 Steps to Master a Virtual Visit webinar. We did that last year, and a lot of people are still going to be doing more. So we'll have a refresher on the virtual visits and more to come. We've been posting where we're going to be in 2022, and a lot more dates and times and places are just around the corner. Hint, hint, tease, tease. With that, we can officially be over, and we can just keep chatting and asking questions. And hopefully this has given you some insights and given you some helpful information that you feel a bit more confident as we're heading into 2022 Christmas.